Well, guys, welcome, Nico from the hunt. I just watched through the last edit of this video and I decided I needed to clarify a few things. This video is all as it pertains to sport fishing and recreational fishing. This has nothing to do with commercial fishing and the likes of that. So please don't take any of what I'm saying out of context. This has nothing to do with commercial fishing. This has nothing to do with things like hoop nets and setting fish traps and stuff like that. This strictly has to do with individuals that are going out and, you're going out with your kids on the weekend, or maybe you're floating jugs, or maybe you're setting trout lines and stuff like that. It completely only pertains to individuals partaking in recreational fishing. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoy the video. Let me know what you think. If you disagree with what I have to say or what I think I may or may not know, let me know down in the comments, you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you enjoy the content, share it. We're trying to get this page up and running and stuff, and right now the algorithms on YouTube is 100%. If you share it, if you comment, and if you like, that's what gets it pushed out to more and more people. Lets us know that you guys are out there and you like what we're doing. So I'm not going to bug you no more. You guys can watch the video, or you guys can check out what we got going on, and I'm just going to run the intro. Alright guys, fishing and big fish is an American pastime without a doubt. Getting around a campfire, telling fish stories in the summer about that one that got away is something everybody does, regardless of who you are. You love it. Getting together on a holiday like the 4th or Memorial Day, having a big fish fry, sharing that time with your family and friends is just another one of those things that's a quintessential summer thing to do. But as more and more people are on social media, and it becomes more of a popular thing to go out and catch these bigger and bigger and bigger fish, to take pictures and show them on TV, or show them on the YouTube. Do people do TV anymore? To show them on all the social medias like the Instagrams and the tweet books and all that good stuff. We really need to take into consideration what we as conservationists are doing to the waters that we're fishing. How are our local fisheries handling this increased pressure? And I did a little research, and there's actually a lot of good information on this, and I'm just going to bring that to you guys today. Is there any harm in keeping these big fish? I see a lot of posts on Facebook, especially in a lot of the groups and that, of people holding up these massive catfish, these big old 10-pound bass, bluegill bigger than my head, and half of the people are, yay, excited, good job, go get some, where'd you catch them, and then the other half, and it's a very divided line, the other half is just throwing back, breeders, throwing shade that guy's way or whatever. So, digging into it, trying to decide how exactly do I feel on this situation, because I'm a very fact-based individual. I started off small with bluegill, okay? Sunfish. That's going to consist of your bluegill, your crappie, your largemouth bass. Bass are a sunfish. They're actually, bass and bluegill are very closely related. And what we find is that bluegill specifically lay about 60,000 eggs a year. Okay? And what's really cool is they actually lay those eggs with, like a female will lay those eggs with multiple males, thus increasing the spread of genetic diversity. So what does that mean to us as anglers? The probability of you pulling out a big bluegill and it hurting the bluegill population is actually really slim, because a big female or a big male has had multiple opportunities to breed and pass on those big genetics. Not only that, but they're laying thousands and thousands and thousands of eggs every season. The same thing holds true with like largemouth bass, where they may only lay a few thousand eggs at a time, but they can breed multiple times in one season. So one spring, a female could lay with 3 or 4 males and have her eggs fertilized. Typically it's around 2, but it is not uncommon to see 3 and upwards of 4 times of a female largemouth bass laying her eggs and those genetics being passed on. Black and white crappie, on the other hand, can lay upwards of 80,000 eggs on average. And one particular thing about crappie is they are minnow eaters. That's right. That's why we fish with minnows when we try to go fish for crappie. And their population is almost completely dependent on the abundance of food and available structure for them to live on. So overfishing them really isn't something that's going to happen, because most of the crappie that you catch are going to be between 1 and 2 years old, and they're already laying eggs at the median for the population. So whatever the average population is of that lake, that's pretty well the size of the crappie that are going to be there. You'll have some outliers, but not as many. So as far as these smaller game fish that are very regulated, there's really no way that we're going to overfish these fish, even by taking the big fish or taking the small fish. Because once they hit breeding age, they're all pretty much laying the same amount of eggs, the same quality of eggs, etc., etc. down the line, with most of their breeding sources being dependent on available food and structure and area for them to breed, area for them to raise their young, and stuff like that. Which brings me to my favorite fish, catfish, particularly flatheads, because that is where all the excitement is right now, is in big flatheads. Everybody loves to go catch a big flathead, and honestly, they're probably the best to eat. Now, amazingly, a big flathead can lay upwards of 100,000 eggs at a time. That is insane. But when we really get into the nitty-gritty, that number is completely dependent on how big the fish is. Every couple pounds of body mass on a catfish, like a flathead, increases the amount of eggs that they will particularly lay. It's usually on average of about 1,000 eggs per pound of body weight over sexual maturity, which happens at about 5 pounds. So when you're pulling a fish out of the water that's at about 5 pounds, she may have eggs in her, but they're not going to be fertile. They're not going to be able to breed. They're not good eggs. So with catfish, the bigger fish lay more eggs, but not only that, but as that fish grows and becomes fatter, it has more available body fat, more nutrients in its body that it can put into those eggs. The yolk sacs of those eggs actually increase massively as that fish gets bigger. So not only is it producing more eggs, but these eggs are more viable, and these eggs are going to have an easier time living once they hatch, because the amount of nutrients that they have is more, so they don't have to come out of hiding as often to feed, because they have a bigger yolk sac, and they can hide for maybe a few more days, even a few more weeks, more than the fry that were born from smaller fish, who are at a big disadvantage because they were born smaller, they were born with a smaller yolk sac, they have to forage sooner before they can grow bigger. And when we look at channels, flatheads, and blues in catfish, we see that they don't breed every single year like a bass or a bluegill would, because they don't always find a mate. They travel a lot. They cover more of an area than your bass or your bluegill and your panfish, gamefish, and stuff like that. They're really close to like walleye and muskie, that's it. They traverse a big area, and they might not breed every year. And what I thought was really, really interesting is I found a study they did in Canada where they had 2 separate lakes, really close ecosystems, close depths, close amount of fish, like just 2 really comparable specimens. And in one lake, they allowed people to take any fish that they want as long as it was within a certain creel limit, so you could only keep so many. In the other lake, they said you cannot keep fish over a certain portion, but you can keep as many as you want from a lower standard. So Lake A, you could keep, a certain amount of fish, but not, and then Lake B, you could have any number of fish you wanted, but not over a certain size. What they found is that the lake that they managed for numbers specifically actually had a less healthy population of fish, and this was walleye, this was sauger, this was a lot of your cold water deep fish like salmon, like lake trout, not salmon, sorry, lake trout. And what they noticed is those fish were laying less eggs. Those eggs were less viable, Not only that, but the fish themselves were not as good at converting the food that they take in into body mass. So they would have to eat more food to gain the same amount of weight as, say, B, where you couldn't keep fish over a certain size. So these larger fish that have the prime genetics are getting thrown back, allowed to breed, and the smaller, younger ones are being taken out of the gene pool and as many as you want. That's leaving more food for these relatively same size fish to come up when they're born and breed up and keep producing more of these higher genetics. And over 4 generations of fish, they actually saw upwards of a 65% increase in body size and 4 times bigger yolk sacs on the eggs. Not only that, but the population had actually increased in that lake where you could keep as many as you want, just not over a certain size, because the fish could more adequately take in the food and turn that into body mass. So it took less energy to create the bigger fish, whereas in the other lake, it took more energy to produce little fish because they just were not efficient. Their genetics were inferior. So, where does all this bring us? We all love to fish. We all love catching big fish. And if we want to continue to catch large fish, big numbers of large fish, we need to do our part and sometimes swallow that urge to take home the big mama that you just pulled out of the water. And don't get me wrong, I love catching big fish, and I keep some too. But, personally, I think I'm going to start putting a limit on how big of a fish I will bring home. Just because I would love for my son to be able to go out and hook into some of these 50 plus pound flatheads and blues that are swimming the rivers. And as conservationists, I think we all need to do our part. And maybe throw one back every now and then. Just a little thought. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Maybe I'm a little selfish. I don't know. Let me know. But that's about all I got on that. Look forward to hearing from you again real soon.